Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world. This is Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or being broadcast simultaneously on Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter. And never to forget, Fistful of Radio. That is fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon as we get ready to discuss some of what is going on in the world today, or any day for that matter. As you see, I've got Dusty here keeping me company. She's a lot less frazzled recently because there's fewer cats in the house. Personal news, of course, is that yesterday the kittens and Granny Smith got dropped off at the vets, and the kittens will not be coming back. They're adopted out already that quick. Granny Smith will be coming back because the reason she's limping is because her elbow is broken. Elbow is broken. Can only wonder how that happened. They were shocked. They don't normally see a break like that. So hopefully nobody hurt her, but you'll never know because it's not like they can tell you. Isn't that right, Dusty? They can't really tell you too much. Now, naturally, I'll read as many comments as I can for those of you who are listening and not able to see what's going on. And I'll acknowledge some of the people who have chosen to drop into the live portion on YouTube thus far. I see Helter is here, Dragon is here, Fluke Man, Monkey, Boogers is here. I don't know if anyone who is viewing on Twitter can comment where I can see it, or if they comment, or if they can, or I don't know. I don't know how any of that works. I keep calling it Twitter. It's X now. X, formerly known as Twitter, kind of like Prince is the artist formerly known as Prince, I suppose. Something like that. Cruising is here, says cheers. Thanks for joining us today, Cruising. Get a nice eye full of Dusty here, sucking up attention as we get ready to plow into the news and see what is going on in the world today. On Coffee Talk, do you have coffee? Armit says, do you need to build a lot of trust with cats before you hold them upside down? Yes. You can't do this with most cats. I couldn't possibly do this with Miss Kitty. She's been treated so badly. She's too scared to be picked up even. It's difficult to pick her up without her getting so frightened that she'll try to fight you. I can do it, but I have to be careful, and I couldn't cradle her like this. So yeah, the cat's got to trust you quite a bit. If for those of you who can't see what we're talking about, of course, I've got Dusty here cradled like a baby while I'm talking. And Fluke Man says, Australian Sky News reported their police allowed the Palestinians community to run wild because they didn't want to get hurt. That's part of the job. They're obviously in the wrong business. No kidding. No kidding. You got to be willing to break that mess up. I bet you they would have broken you up if you weren't wearing your mask back in the day. Because didn't they do that? Didn't they round up people, beach parties and stuff like that, and go and give them a hard time because they didn't have their masks on or they weren't social distancing? That's okay. But yeah, you're out there burning flags and throwing rocks and bottles. And oh, no, we got to stay back. Oh, well. Yeah. Urban is here today, as well as all people. Thank you for joining us as we get ready to dig into the first article. Hey, sweetheart, you are just really falling out on me. Cruising says non-maskers weren't likely to pull machetes and fight back. That's true. That is true, Cruising. The people that we're talking about are pretty wild, and it's in their nature because that's how they were raised. It's how they were raised, and it's something that a lot of people don't understand in the West. They just don't get it. They don't understand that in the West. And I see one more here from all people. He says, Dusty and Uncle will become best friends. I don't know about that. Uncle's really easygoing, but she takes a step back from him. And I see Gary has joined us. Gary Edwards is here this afternoon. as we take a look at the first article here, and this is from Fox News, and it says Lawrence Jones tracks down Pelosi top Democrats to ask about Rashida Tlaib and Iran's $6 billion. Because, of course, you remember that Biden made that terrible deal where he did a prisoner exchange and he swapped prisoners he was holding with Iranian prisoners with American prisoners, but also freed up $6 billion for them with the promise, sweetheart promise, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, cross your fingers and cross your heart and hope to die, stick a needle in your eye, that you will use that money for humanitarian purposes. Humanitarian purposes. And Iran was like, yeah, sure, wink, wink. And then after they got the money, was like, yeah, tough shit, America, we'll do whatever the hell we want. Go ahead, Dusty, you can get down. And so now that's an issue. And now they're saying they're trying to see if they can get that money back, which technically is possible since the money isn't real. It's wired and exchanged that way. So we'll see what happens. So Fox News, it says Lawrence Jones pressed top Democrats on Rashida Tlaib flying the Palestinian flag outside her office, and the Biden administration previously greenlighting $6 billion to Iran as bloodshed continues to engulf the Israel-Gaza border. The Fox and Friends co-host tracked down several lawmakers on Capitol Hill as Tlaib faces backlash after her recent refusal to condemn Hamas for brutally killing Israeli women and children. He asked them how they felt about her flying the controversial flag. Now, also, Tlaib is only one of like 6 of those female Democrats that are in that one little group, like with AOC and a couple others. And they had some nasty things to say at first. A couple of them have now flip-flopped. AOC big time is sucking up now because she realized she backed the wrong horse, which is about as dirty as anything else. At least Tlaib so far is sticking to her guns. Even if she's wrong, I can respect that. If you said something, mean it, if you get what I'm saying. So continuing on here, this is America. New Jersey Representative Bill Parcell said when asked about the flag, you're allowed the flag that you prefer. I think she has every right to have the Palestinian flag. Washington Representative Pramila J. Paul said she's Palestinian. That doesn't mean she's a terrorist. Maryland Representative Steny Hoyer chimed in. It doesn't mean that she condones this. She didn't say she doesn't. Tlaib has the Palestinian flag outside her congressional office near the Capitol since at least January, and her support of Palestinian is Palestine or Palestinians is widely known amid the Hamas war against Israel, which has left at least 22 Americans dead. I heard it was 28 now. The Washington Examiner's Reese Gorman snapped a photo of the flag that went viral on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. The flag is still prominently displayed in front of Tlaib's office as of Tuesday morning. Photos taken by Fox News, blah, blah, blah. Here's my issue. Where's the American flag? I have a question. So here's her office. There's the Palestinian flag. I guess the flag of the state that she represents, the flag for the District of Columbia, and then the gay pride flag, which, by the way, Tlaib, you want to pretend to be Muslim and you want to pretend to be down with Palestine, I dare you to bring that flag to the Middle East and see what happens to you, because you will be treated like everyone else down there. They'll chop your arms off for waving that flag or even having it in the Middle East. So where exactly do your priorities lie? I don't see an American flag at all. I can understand the flag of your state. I can understand the DC flag. And the only other flag, in my opinion, that should be there is the American flag. And the rest of it can go, because the rest of it's political. This is political. This is political. So where do your priorities lie, Tlaib? That's a big question, especially seeing the pride flag sitting in front of her office, which does not wash with Palestine at all. They would kill her for that if she was over there. Catching up on some of the comments here, I see Fluke Man says, one day our military will just let our enemies murder us because they're too afraid to protect their own people, which is us. Well, you see the trouble they're having in the U.S. military nowadays with their skinny, fat people. They can't even pass the physical to get as far as being even sent to boot camp in the first place. There's the American citizens that are applying are so weak. D'Lo is here. Thanks for joining us. He says ads again. Well, I do appreciate you watching the ads as long as they're not too long and too tedious, because it does help a little bit. Tuck is here. He says Biden collected 10% on $6 billion to Iran. Armid says, remember the $6 billion, of course, again. Cyberjack Sr. is here. Bingo is here. Monkey says it looks like she's an ambassador for Palestine rather than a House of Representative. Yeah. Helta said she also repeatedly refused to condemn the beheading and mass murder of 40 babies, not Hamas as a whole, not the killing of civilians, not terrorism as a tactic. There's a lot wrong with all of it. And she is still very much pro-Palestine. Well, we'll just have to, it remains to be seen if she gets elected again. Cruising says, given the relationship with her brother, she should be flying the Alabama flag. Ooh, well, maybe that's why she's got the pride flag up. Armid says, imagine X changing its name to formerly known as Twitter. There you go. Rock Valley is here today. Gary says, politics make strange bedfellows. Indeed, because you don't really care about anything. It's all about how things look. It's all about the image, the face value. And Monkey says Hezbollah is fighting IDF now. That's true. And Dragon says Rashida doesn't call out her fraud squad members who openly support the Israeli apartheid state. They should be shamed in public. And All People said the squad's composed of war pigs, sows, and Talab is openly anti-Western, anti-American, and Christophobic, anti-Semitic, and racist. Youch, that's a mouthful, but I totally get where you're coming from. But again, the thing that popped out to me about this particular article is that I do not see the American flag represented in front of her office. And again, in my opinion, and isn't that like, does that say UAW, that sign on her door? She shouldn't have anything representing a union on her door either, I don't think. Am I reading that sign wrong? People, can you see it who are watching? American flag, state flag, DC flag, and that's it. The rest of it I could do without personally, but that's my takeaway there. And I'd like to see that whole squad just ousted, because they work against the system. They're working against the system, which means they're working against their constituents, regardless of what those constituents thought they were going to accomplish by voting for her in the first place, voting for these people in the first place. It works against their constituents, or the majority of their constituents, instead of pandering to fringe minority groups like most of these politicians do. It's really distasteful. And Monkey says it looks like a UAW sign. Yeah. And Preparedness is here. Preparedness Veterans, thanks for joining us today. And Monkey says that seriously makes UAW look like a government-ran union. Well, she's basically demonstrating that she's in bed with one of the unions, or other unions as well, very likely, because they do have representatives in Washington. They do send people out there to try to manipulate politicians, and they're willing to take donations from these people, then they're working for them. Armid says, even heard of Israel's Samsonite strategy. Ever heard of Israel's Samsonite strategy? I'm not sure. And Urban says, Talab is nobody. Someone had their hand up her puppet butt. Woo. And All People says Omar is actually the one that married her own brother, while Talab is the one who refers to the historic American black people as being props. And Booger says, do you think something will happen tomorrow with what was called for? I don't know. We'll see. And Mr. Mike says she's a representative for Detroit, Michigan. And Ali says this is getting absurd. Gary said, if the devil was behind the door, what flags would he fly? Yeah, that's a good question. I think she's got it covered for him. Now, this is something that popped up in the news feeds, and we're switching to the border crisis again. I've been talking about some weird stuff I've been finding researching this recently. And this struck me as very interesting. And this comes from the American Insider. It says 24,000 Chinese migrants caught at the border. And you'll see why this is interesting as I get into this article. Nearly 25,000 illegal immigrants coming from the People's Republic of China have been apprehended at the southern border by Border Patrol agents. The number is particularly high as the total amount, and this is the most important thing, and they get to it right away, the total amount of migrants coming from the People's Republic of China since 2007 was under 20,000. Reportedly, over 80% of the illegal immigrants are adults traveling alone. Totalitarian governments like China are great exploiters of opportunity. They recognize weakness and capitalize on it immediately, says Dr. Kenneth Allard. What we are seeing reflects a deliberate policy choice by the regime. Allard presses that the People's Republic of China sees the weakness of President Joe Biden and said it's obvious he's not entirely in control as president and that China realizes this. So all of a sudden, we haven't had 20,000. It's been a total of about 20,000 or less than 20,000 Chinese nationals claiming to be refugees crossing the southern border since 2007. And then suddenly, they processed 25,000 of them all at once. That's very interesting. I think that's very interesting. Those people should be put on a plane and sent right back where they came from immediately. Immediately. Something's very wrong with that. Arakul says, can you imagine how many in Canada? Yeah, I can. It's bad. It's just that, again, America is the weakest at this right now. It's happening all across the Western world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, name it. Name it. But the U.S. is the worst since the Biden administration. What are you doing down there? She's trying to get at the window. The window's closed. Dusty under the desk here. That is highly suspicious to me. And we talked about that yesterday also with the illegal special interest alien. The term special interest alien, and that they had said during the Biden administration and within the last 2 years, they have accepted more than 73 or 74,000. I had it written down yesterday, 73 or 74,000 special interest aliens. And a special interest alien is an alien that is under normal circumstances suspected of possibly being linked to terrorism. And they didn't reject these people, because they weren't allowed to repatriate anyone. They should have been left. They should have been sent out of the country. All of these people need to go back where they came from. I'll stand by that 100%. And I'll mention it every opportunity I get for anybody who has joined us for the first time so they can think about it and mull it over in their minds. It's cheaper to send them back where they came from than it is to try to take care of them. We can't take care of ourselves. Taxpayers are stretched to the limit, and their patience is stretched to the limit with the crime and the pollution and the squalor that comes with a lot of these people from where they're coming from. They're so used to it that it makes no difference to them. Also, we don't know for sure who we're really letting in, since it's not being vetted and people aren't being repatriated at all. Gary says it's TikTok spies. Hey, it could be. All people said, many, if not most of these Chinese migrants are at the southern border are commie spies. We have no way of knowing. And Eric Hill says, get loads of popcorn. It's going to be a poop show. Indeed, it already is. And Urban says, a decade ago, it was estimated that many of the Chinese-run sweatshops in New York were undocumented Chinese citizens living in conditions akin to slavery. Canada was a major point of entry. I remember that. It was, and that went way back further than just a decade. That's something that was going on in the United States since the late 1800s when they were pouring into San Francisco. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Fluke Man says, shouldn't they interrogate the Chinese migrants for possible spy activities? They're not allowed to. Again, there's no vetting process, and that was revealed when Elon Musk went down to the border and spoke to the sheriffs and the representative and everybody down there, and they said, we can't. We can't really do anything with them, and we're not allowed to reject them. We're not allowed to send them back. They haven't been allowed. They haven't been permitted. Unless they have a criminal record in the United States. But that doesn't mean they don't have a criminal record somewhere else in the world. And it doesn't mean they're not dangerous. It doesn't mean they're not linked to terrorism. It doesn't mean they're not spies. We don't know what the hell is going on. It doesn't mean they're not running from the law from somewhere else in the world. Again, I think they should be returned. Armored says special interest alien could be a rapper name. Yeah, I see that. Eric Hill says rumors are 150,000 Taliban. What a Trojan horse story coming to theaters all over. And that could be also. We have no idea who they are, where they are, what they're doing. And this is also part of the reason why that's also the reason why Trump wanted to reinitiate that law. I can't remember the name of the law, but there was that law that's been on the books for a long time in the United States to repatriate these people, start finding them and rounding them up and send them back where they came from. And most of these countries will take them back. And if they don't, we can force them or put them somewhere and get rid of them. Get rid of them. They don't need to be here. And who is it? Cruising says entering illegally should automatically be a criminal record. You would think so. You would think so. And Armand says Chinese migrants are now fresh across the border instead of fresh off the boat. And there's Bubblehead. He says, remember the secret Chinese police station in New York. And one more here from all people and move on to the next article. He says, even if we did have all the resources in the world, we are not obligated to take care of the world and provide them with their dream of better lives. That's true. And that's something that I've brought up many times doing discussions on this channel and in these podcasts, that they will throw ethics at you. But I put it to you, it is not unethical to be honest and tell people, we're overwhelmed and we can't help you. I'm sorry. I've got to take care of my own first. Our house is falling apart. We cannot take care of our neighbors' homes. You've got to go somewhere else, or you've got to go back where you came from. That is not unethical to choose to take care of your own first and solve your own problems first before you deal with anyone else anywhere else in the world. That is not immoral. It is not unethical. But, people who pander to that want to make you feel like it's immoral and unethical, and they'll try to corner you with that, but it is not, and you have to stand on that. It's not immoral, and besides, we can't afford it. Next article here comes from the Telegraph, and this kind of ties in. It says Britain can learn from Poland's rejection of illegal migration and globalization. Good for you, Poland. They get it. Apparently no one else in the West understand. Well, they're more Eastern Bloc, but the West doesn't seem to understand it. Poland figured it out. It says Poland is at a political crossroads. On Sunday, voters will decide on both the future of the Conservative Law and Justice Party government and whether to accept migrant quotas from the European Union. Don't do it. Do not do it. The latter vote will be held in the form of a referendum where Poles are asked, do you support the admission of thousands of illegal immigrants from the Middle East and Africa under the forced relocation mechanism imposed by the European bureaucracy? That is, of course, the European Union trying to force these countries to take them. The question may be biased, but many in the opposition parties have pledged to boycott the vote. But it will serve as a weather vane for Polish attitudes both on Brussels and migration. They better not do it. I hope they're smart enough to look around and see what's going on in the rest of the world to realize how damaging it'll be to their country. In a film for the Telegraph, I went to the Polish Belarusian border to find out how locals plan to vote in the upcoming referendum. Everyone I spoke to in the border town was firmly against illegal migration. One woman even said she felt unsafe when migrants came through her property during the border crisis in 2021, after the Belarusian dictator Alexander Lukashenko threatened to flood Europe with migrants in 2021. Thousands of people from the Middle East attempted to enter Poland via Belarus. Since the government has built a fence with accompanying drones and high-tech cameras to monitor the border, which has been largely successful at preventing crossings. The Belarusian affair alerted Poles to an issue those in Europe's border states have had to contend with for years. The vote will likely represent a firm rejection of the liberal immigration policies that have led to conflict and division across the continent. Poland's experience has historically been emigration, not immigration, though as the nation grows richer, Warsaw will likely become as much a magnet for economic migrants as Paris and London have been for decades. So far, Poland has largely been a transit country for those searching for work and generous welfare in Germany and France. However, law and justice has faced criticism from its right-wing rival, the Confederation, for handing out thousands of work visas to non-European migrants from Asia and Africa in the last 8 years. The cries against legal mass migration are already being sounded, though if the center-left opposition win on Sunday. Poland may join Western Europe in dabbling with the multicultural experiment. That experiment has failed. That experiment failed a long time ago. So I hope Poland stands on its word and continues to blockade that and not allow it, or they're going to get crushed. They're going to get crushed. Dragon says, protecting your country's border and the people is not racist or wrong. I applaud Poland for their common sense. They have the guts to stand up to illegal immigrants. Eric Peter says, my wife is from Poland, and what separates them from the other Euro countries is that they have huge pride in their culture and religions. They protect their roots. Cruising says, the last time 100,000 migrants ran over the Polish border illegally was 1939. No kidding. And they know what happened then, don't they? It was a mess. Donna says, our government will never let anyone clean out all the people that crossed over the border in the last 3 years, let alone go back 10 years and more. And Cruising says, new policy idea, turn in an illegal migrant for deportation, get a $10,000 tax credit. That would do it. Oh, wow. That would do it. Oh, you're ready for the card. You'll be looking for food cards next. Like ZPG, anyone ever see Zero Population Growth? And you turn in your neighbor and you get an extra ration card. It's a film from the early 70s. ZPG, the Zero Population Growth. But that's, they're throwing that out at Britain, actually, the Telegraph, obviously, because the Telegraph, it's a British paper, isn't it? Isn't that a UK paper? Or is it a European? I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'm asking. That Britain should take a page out of that and stop taking people in. Yes, they should. They're so scared in England that, is it Arlington? I forget. There's soccer matches coming up, and they're going to search people, and they will not allow anybody with either a Star of David flag or a Palestinian flag. They'll confiscate them because they're afraid somebody's going to try to protest in the games to stir mess up. And if you're that scared, then it's already too late. It's already too late, Great Britain. You need to think about that. But yeah, they're already crushed. They're already crushed under it. Preparedness says the Daily Telegraph. Yes, English. I thought so. I just wanted to be sure because I don't know everything. Nobody does. They just act like they do. Next article, of course, comes from this CNBC, NBC News, and it says the IRS says Microsoft owes an additional $29 billion in back taxes. Do they? Whew, that'll be a fight. And when that happens with a large company, usually they're pretty tight on their P's and Q's when it comes to dotting their I's and crossing their T's, as it were, when it comes to taxes, so that they don't make a mistake and they don't end up in trouble. I would also wonder how much of that $29 billion is like fees and penalties, because that's what they'll do. They'll quadruple what you owe in fees and penalties in a heartbeat. And then you got to fight about it. At least Microsoft can afford to fight it. I don't know if they owe it or not. I'm not for Microsoft. I'm not a Bill Gates fan by any means, but I also don't trust the IRS. So the article says Microsoft received notices of proposed adjustment from the Internal Revenue Service for an additional tax payment of $28.9 billion, the company said in an 8K filing Wednesday. Maybe this is how Biden's going to pay for all the money he sent to Ukraine. We're just going to tax Microsoft for it. Microsoft said the dispute concerns the company's allocated profits between countries and jurisdictions from 2004 to 2013. It said up to $10 billion in taxes that the company has already paid are not reflected in the proposal adjustments made by the IRS. Microsoft plans to contest the notices through the IRS administrative appeal and is willing to go to judicial proceedings if necessary. That'll take years. That will take years. And also, there it is, because they're saying it's 10 billion in taxes. The company says it already paid, but somehow 10 billion turned into 28.9. Yeah, that's how the IRS does you. They did it to me. Microsoft disagrees with these proposed adjustments and will pursue an appeal with the IRS, a process expected to take several years. There it is. The company said in its filing, we believe we have always followed IRS rules and paid the taxes we owed in the US and around the world. Microsoft said that as of September 30th, 2023, it believes its allowances for income tax contingencies are adequate. And they probably are. And again, I'm not a fan of Microsoft. I'm not a fan of Bill Gates, but I don't trust the IRS either. I don't trust them. They say they paid it. They very likely have. They're going to waste the next 7 years in court proving it. And again, you go from 10 to 28.9 because of fees and penalties. And that's the way they work. Like I said, they've done it to me. They've done it to me. As I catch up some more of these comments here, Fluke Man said only if Nigel Farage became, or Farage, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, became prime minister for a few elections. Gary says Bill Gates' building was number 9. Number 9. Yeah, okay. Preparedness says UK has gone from being a stoic society and aware of terrorism to a society too scared to offend and slow to react. Much too slow, my friend. Much too slow. West Rose says MS has been co-opted by India, the CEO, and customer service. And they mean Microsoft, I assume. Preparedness says Microsoft and other big companies base themselves in Ireland to avoid paying British taxes. I don't blame them. The thing is, people will condemn a company for doing that, but then they'll complain if they have trouble with the same agencies. They can't afford to hide, and so they're mad. Anybody would take any loophole they could if they could afford to do it, or if they had enough money to be able to afford an accountant or tax attorney to help them figure it out. Monkey says IRS is scary. If they get on you for something, even the Joker won't take on the IRS. Yeah, no kidding. And he means the Joker from Batman. Preparedness says, Farage is in garage. I don't know. I don't know. I can't pronounce everybody's name, but sure. Yeah, I don't trust them. They're probably being shady. Like I said, that'd be a great way for them to recover some of the money that they've thrown away at the Ukrainian money pit money, as well as many other programs. This is how they do it. But yeah, the IRS is scary. I know firsthand. I've had a lot of personal experience with them that is very unpleasant. I still owe them money. And they can make your life hell. And there is zero accountability and no transparency. They don't even have to talk to you about your own case. It's absolutely insane the way that it works. It's one of the scariest agencies to deal with. Although, funny enough, more people, I know there was a survey. I don't trust surveys, but in one survey, government agencies you're afraid of, actually, the Bureau of Land Management was ahead of the IRS. I don't know where they did this survey, but I'm like, You're scared of the BLM more than, and I don't mean Black Lives Matter. I mean, of course, Bureau of Land Management. You're more afraid of them than you are of the IRS. I guess you've never been in trouble with the IRS. They'll peel the shirt off your back. As we continue on, and I see Gary here. He says money is like manure. It stinks in a heap, but it's spread around. It makes the whole world fruitful. Yeah, that's the political mentality behind it, but it doesn't really work. As we look at The Hill, the next article comes from The Hill, and it's talking about everybody's favorite politician, Fetterman. Yay, Fetterman. He belongs on a children's show. He's like Mr. Rogers' next door neighbor or something. Monkey says, I also got mail from the FDA to do some survey for them. It's out of 300,000 people. I'll do it tonight, and I'll tell you what they wanted. Interesting. I didn't get one. It says, Fetterman says America is not sending their best and brightest to Congress. Let's read through this real quick. This is real easy to attack. Senator John Fetterman said Wednesday that America is not sending their best and brightest to represent them in Congress. Sometimes you literally just can't believe, like, these people are making the decisions that are determining the government here. It's actually scary, the Pennsylvania Democrat said during an appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Before the government almost shut down, I mean, it came down to a couple hours, Fetterman said of the House and Senate last month, passing a continuing resolution to fund the government into mid-November, narrowly avoiding a shutdown, which is all smoke and mirrors. They threaten to shut down like every couple of months now, it seems, ever since the Obama administration. I mean, we've always had that loom from time to time, not back to back like we have now. It's just some BS that they come up with so they can pass a bunch of crappy bills that nobody wants. Getting back to the article, and in quotation, I was in my office and they finally came over from the House and they're like, okay, well, this has to be unanimous in the Senate. And out of 99 of us, if one single one of us would have said no, the whole government would have shut down, he told Colbert. That's how dangerous that is to put that kind of power in one's hands, because you have some very less gifted kinds of people there that are willing to shut down the government just as score points on Fox News. And again, Fetterman talks weird, so it's kind of hard to follow along reading what he says. Well, it's a low bar, really, Fetterman replied. I just want everybody to realize just how truly dysfunctional it really is. And I find this amusing because he says America is not sending their best and brightest to Congress, and he's the poster boy for that. He's the poster boy for it. I know he's got something wrong with him, okay? But he's incoherent. He doesn't pay attention. He won't adhere to the dress code so staunchly that they changed the dress code to accommodate him. I'm waiting for pajama day or costume day on Halloween. This guy is the embodiment of what he's talking about by picking on other people in Congress by saying that they're not sending their best and brightest. This is an example of irony. This is an example of the pot calling the kettle black, Fetterman. I mean, I can understand being handicapped, and if you're able to do your job, do it. He doesn't seem like he can. He doesn't seem like he can stay focused. He doesn't seem like he can show respect to the job or the constituents that put him in office. If you get what I'm saying. Back to comments, Helter says he opened the floodgates with that one. Fetterman himself is a mockery of a lawmaker. Sad reality is he can't comprehend that he's referring to himself. Ali says Bob Mendez, U.S. Senator, faces new charges of acting as an agent of Egypt. Whoops. Oh, good. Bury the guy. Gary said politicians are like diapers. They should be changed, and often. You would think so, but you can't get rid of them. We got people in there from the Stone Age. We got people in there that were in office before there was a government. Urban says, I keep trying to make a comment that is immediately flagged and deleted by YouTube. I'm simply wondering how much human hummus is squeezing into Murica through the southern membrane. There you go. You got to code it. All people, that's why all people types all funny. For those of you who can see the comments, he types it all in code because it's to try to fool the algorithm. I wouldn't be surprised. And remember, they also their chant is, and they've chanted this in every country, that they have been having a party celebrating what Hamas has done, including the United States, death to Israel and death to America. They will bring it here if they can, and many of them are probably already here because they walked right across either the southern or the northern border. And it's a legitimate question, and I'm sorry they keep messing with your comments, Urban. Dragon says he's a shining example of his own statement. If you still don't think our elections aren't rigged, again, he is a shining example of it. Yeah, well, you know, everybody in the cemetery thought he was great, and so did everyone in the mental health facility. And a lot of pets, too. You have your pet registered? I forget where that was. Someplace people's pets were being registered. And it wasn't that long ago. I forget where I read that. But yeah, exactly what I was saying. That article struck me as amusing because I'm like, Fetterman, you're talking about yourself. You show up when you show up in Congress wearing a dirty t-shirt and a hoodie and a pair of shorts, okay? And like slip-on sneakers or something, looking pathetic. You talk, no one knows what you're saying. You try to make a point, it seems like you don't even know what you're talking about. It's incredible that you are not a shining example by any means. Donna says, "Did you know if the government shuts down, the wasteful spending goes on?" Yeah, of course it does. And Ali says, and they will see why Terrys do not last long in the USA. Gary said the two-party monopoly is a one-party disguised as two parties working both sides of the political street. Yeah, something that I had said once before, I'll quote myself here. The Democrat and Republican Party are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is in someone else's pocket. And Preparedness says we used to have dog licenses in Britain. That day may come back. And we'll say goodbye to Fetterman because people don't seem to like him anyways, even though he got voted in somehow. 81 million votes. No, that was Joe Biden, of course. 81 million votes. I just can't wrap my mind around that. I don't believe it for a minute. And you can't send your best and brightest if people in public school aren't very smart. And here we go, Associated Press. ACT test scores for U.S. students dropped to new 30-year low. I'm surprised they're that high. Big surprise. American high school students can't pass the ACT assessment anymore. High school students' scores on the ACT college admissions test have dropped to their lowest in more than 3 decades, showing a lack of student preparedness for college-level coursework. Watch them blame the C virus on this. According to the nonprofit organization that administers the test, scores have been falling for 6 consecutive years, but the trend accelerated during the C virus pandemic. There it is. Students in the class of 2023 whose scores were reported Wednesday were in their first year of high school when the virus reached the U.S. Yeah, blame it on the virus. The hard truth is that we are not doing enough to ensure that graduates are truly ready for post-secondary success in college and career, said Janet Godwin, Chief Executive Officer for the nonprofit ACT. The average ACT composite score for U.S. students was 19.5 out of 36 last year. The average score was 19.8. The average scores in reading, science, and math all were below benchmarks. The ACT says students must reach in order to have a high probability, of success in first-year college courses. The average score in English was just above the benchmark, but still declined compared to last year. It's been declining every year for the last few decades. Don't blame the C virus for it, okay? It's been declining because they've been taking programs that actually educate students out of school and putting in bullshit programs that are more socio-political oriented. And yeah, guess what? They can't pass. Even when I went to college, they had trouble with this, with students coming in from public schools, high school graduates, A students 4.0 and are in that range, who couldn't do the basic courses, and that's why they have those prerequisite courses in college readiness classes and things like that in college, because the kids coming out of high school back then couldn't do it. And of course, as I've pointed out before, kids that were coming from homeschool or from private schools were fine. They were doing great. The public school students were suffering, and that was a while back. And now these kids have realized, and this does contribute to it from the C virus, from the shutdowns. Shit, I wasn't getting anything out of school anyway. What's the point? Now that I don't have to go, I can really see it. Big surprise. Big surprise. As I, oh man, as I catch up on a few more of the comments here, Cruising says, they said the students are lazy and won't do anything unless they're entertained by a circus in a weird way. Yeah. Eric Peter says 4 years ago seems just about the right time when the alphabet soup hit hard in public schools. That too. And Helter says, don't know if No Child Left Behind is to blame, but I blame all those whining adults who just want the students to do well by giving them the grades they clearly don't deserve. Dragon says, can't fail a student because it will hurt their precious Whittle feelings. And he spells Whittle with a W. A little Elmer Fudd there. We all fail at something. That is correct. And Gary says we should read John Taylor Gatto's book, The Underground History of American Education. Monkey says in Ohio public school, you have to take the ACT. I never did. I never took the ACT. I still went to college. I never graduated high school. I had to drop out so I could work. I dropped out in the 10th grade. And I just started the 10th grade. And I dropped out and I went and took my GED and I finished in the high 90th percentile and then went to work and went to college many years later. Because even then I realized it was a waste of time. Plus I needed to work and I couldn't do both. Monkey says the moment colleges were taking out SAT as a submission option, things are bad. Yeah, well, things are bad anyway and getting worse all the time. Here's something I thought was interesting as we dig around through the news. And this comes out of Norway. I don't know if anyone's watching from Norway today. From time to time, we get people from Norway in here. This is the San Diego Union Tribune. So you know it's the truth. I'm just messing with them. And you can find these articles anywhere. I just randomly picked them just for the hell of it. And you can choose whatever article you like if you wanted to go back and look this stuff up. I just named the source. It says Norway activists press on with their protest against wind farm on land used by herders. And you see some of these protesters out here in their little indigenous outfits. Because, yeah, there are indigenous people all over the world, ladies and gentlemen. Dozens of activists in Norway on Thursday blocked the entrance to one of the main operations of a wind farm they say hinders the rights of the Sami indigenous people to raise reindeer. At the center, and it sounds silly, but I get their point. I really do. At the center of the dispute are the 151 turbines of Europe's largest onshore wind farm, which is located in central Norway's Fosen district, about 450 kilometers, that is 280 miles, north of the capital of Oslo. Or Oslo, it depends on your pronunciation. The activists say a transition to green energy shouldn't come at the expense of the rights of indigenous people. So what's the problem? We'll see if they'll explain it here. They have demonstrated repeatedly against the wind farm's continued operation since the Supreme Court of Norway ruled in October of 2021 that the construction of the turbines had indeed violated the rights of the Sami, who have used the land for the reindeer for centuries. On Thursday, the activists sat down on the ground outside the building in Oslo for Stockcroft, a state-owned company that operates 80 of the wind turbines at Fosen. We expect to block all visible entrances, activist Gina Gilver told the Norwegian newspaper Dagsslaven or Dagsavisen. I don't know. I'm probably butchering it. Police spokesman Sven Martin, he had to be named Sven, didn't he? Told Norwegian news agency that about 100 protesters have said they want to prevent employees of Statkraft from entering their workplace, after which it was decided that they will work from home. Late Wednesday, a group of about 20 Sami, many dressed in traditional garments, staged a protest in a central hallway inside the Norwegian parliament. They were removed by police after refusing to leave the premises. Hundreds more had gathered on the main street leading up to Norway's parliament, the Storting. So basically, they went to these people's indigenous land where they live and where they herd reindeer, because they eat them and they milk them. No kidding. And put up wind farms, which are disruptive and need a lot of maintenance. So now you got trucks coming back and forth. You got construction going on, and it causes them problems. And they went to the court, and they went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, you know what? This is a problem. Do something about it. And guess what? The wind farms aren't doing a damn thing about it because the government's not going to make them. So now they're out here protesting again. And I can't say I blame them. I can't say I blame them for that. All People says the majority of color students in the U.S. public school hail from post-1965 migrant families. There we go. There we go, All People. Eric Peter says Norway is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Sad, it is also filled with morons. They're everywhere. It's like they live. Well, as I always say, people are not that smart. Most people are not that smart. They really are not. Where are we here? More comments. Helter says back in March of this year, Greta Thunberg blocked access to Norwegian ministries as a way to protest the wind farms. The Norwegian police eventually detained Thunberg. Excuse me. I believe she had to pay a fine for that just recently. And yeah, it's one of the few useful things I think she may have done in her life. Gary says there are over 6,000 patents being currently suppressed by the U.S. Patent Service. Many of the patents are for free energy devices. Preparedness says this violation protest has been going on since 2021. And Urban says, excuse me, I swallowed wrong. Urban says wind energy isn't exactly what was promised. No kidding. It may even turn out that it takes more energy to build a wind farm than that farm could ever produce. Those wind turbines, they're destructive to wildlife because they're harmful to birds. They take up a lot of space. They're very expensive to build, and they do break down, and that means the parts have to be replaced, and there is no way to recycle those parts. And they usually, especially the propellers themselves, which are often buried in landfills. So yeah, it's a huge joke. The whole wind farm thing, it doesn't really work. On a smaller scale, like if you have a small personal windmill for your house, and I've seen these, maybe 20 feet tall. It's like a mini version for your own home. Like if you have solar panels on your home to supplement electricity, that's one thing. But these farms, they don't really seem to work the way that we've been convinced that they do. Loyal says one is spinning 50 or on break. Yeah, because they have to close them down. And if the wind is too strong, they'll be permanently damaged. So they have to shut them off. And that's something else to consider. They have to shut the damn things off. And we've been talking a lot about the strikes that have been going on in the United States and Canada now too. And this is interesting because we had mentioned the other day or a few days ago that Mack Trucks had an agreement. And then They rejected the agreement after they had signed it. They had the agreement set on October 1st, and then like a couple of weeks later, they're like, no, we don't want an agreement now, or a few, like less than 2 weeks later. Now we don't want the agreement, and they're back on the picket line. Can't make up their damn minds. And so here, this comes from Deadline. Is this the news story from Deadline? I'm assuming that's the name of the paper. It says studios declare SAG-AFTRA talks suspended, slam Guild for rejecting terms offered to WGA and DGA. So basically, they had an agreement worked out, and now they changed their mind again. After less than 2 weeks, the latest negotiations between SAG-AFTRA and the studios and streamers have broken down and been suspended, according to the AMPTP on Wednesday. After meaningful conversations, it is clear that the gap between the AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA is too great, and conversations are no longer moving us in a productive direction. The Carol Lombardi-led group said in a statement late tonight after what was described by Deadline by one source as much rockier than usual talks. So the collapse of the talks, for at least the time being, was preceded by a proposal earlier in the day from Actors Guild that the AMPTP decided it couldn't swallow. So you're going back on the picket line now? As Deadline reported today, and over the past week of deliberations between the parties, the main stumbling block to a deal seems to be SAG-AFTRA's desire for revenue sharing from successful streaming shows. It jumped. Terming the profit split demand, which is estimated to make around 2% of potential profits, an untenable economic burden. That's about what I get for ads that run on YouTube. 2%. It ain't much. It's nothing. It's like a few cents for if an ad runs. I'm lucky to get a nickel out of it. So, but yeah, you want more money, and you're going back on strike after you had something figured out. Is that really smart? Is that the way to go? You're already not needed. You maybe if you were better writers or better actors, because Lord knows in the modern generation they're terrible. We get bad, excuse me. We're getting bad cinematography. We're getting bad storylines. We're getting so-called progressive storylines that are forcing agendas in everything that we watch. We're getting poor writing style. The acting is wooden. I can't remember the last time I watched an actor in something. I was like, wow, that's a good performance. Go on strike. Who needs you? They get AI now. You're going to erase yourselves like all these people that are going to get replaced with robots. These people are going to get replaced with AI generators. Gary said title generators are a good idea. Talking about power generation again. Dragon says it's a common studio strategy to make bad offers, refuse to negotiate, then publicly condemn unions for not taking historic deals. In this case, SAG is probably going through what the WGA did. Monkey said Mack Trucks is owned by Volvo. Hence, Volvo stock as of right now is $20.73. Yeah, and that's a junk stock. If that's correct, if it's $20.73, it's a junk stock. And that means they probably don't have much more to offer. Dragon says the strike won't end until the studios actually bargain, and they want people to forget that SAG is fighting for actor-focused gains or protection. Monkey says, so really, really bad stock. Yeah. Preparedness says 2% revenue. That's shocking. Urban says, how is it that the worse the economy gets, the more unions strike for more money? Isn't it supposed to be the other way? That's correct. But this is a great strategy if they want to set the American economy up for a crash, or if they want to set it up to crush middle class so that you have an upper echelon and people at the bottom and nothing in between, which is what you find in socialist and communist regimes. And Gary says too many political hoops hamstringing writers. I'd have more empathy for them if they were better at it. I just don't think that they're producing anything halfway decent anymore, and that's just my opinion of it. But yeah, this is not the time. Everybody's striking all over the place. Oh, and I really wanted to show this. Maybe I'll remember to do it tomorrow. because, of course, CVS and Walgreens pharmacists are on strike. And now the day actually, and I'll look for an article or some information on it, and I'll try to remember to pull it up tomorrow. The day that Walgreens made the announcement, Amazon made the announcement that they're done in their test phase for prescriptions, and now they're 100%. So you can get 24/7 delivery of prescriptions through Amazon anywhere and right to your door immediately. So guess what? You don't need Walgreens and CVS anymore, because most people will do that because it's more convenient and it's cheaper. I'm going to look for that and pull it up, because it's been a pilot program for a couple of years. But the day that Walgreens, because CVS already announced it, and the day Walgreens made the announcement for the strike, there was a blanket announcement from Amazon. Anyways, I'll try to remember that for tomorrow, and I'll see if I can find something I can read for you so that you can follow that along. Perfect timing. And again, you're all replaceable now. Don't push your luck. So, Cruising says, got a dip for work. So do I. And he says, guilty of using Amazon for everything. There you go. And Gary said, drone deliveries. Yeah, that's coming too. Anyways, again, this is Coffee Talk. So you are watching or listening to Coffee Talk at Coffee Talk on YouTube, or Prepper University on YouTube, or at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, as well as fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon. Please do find me there if you don't mind. And if that's it, I'll go ahead and sign off for the day. Hope everybody got something out of the conversation. Thanks for joining us today. And we will see you up, or we'll see you up. We will see you again tomorrow.